Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. That man, that young man, I forgive him.
At State Farm Stadium, before a crowd of tens of thousands, Erika Kirk stepped forward to speak at her husband's memorial. The nation was already watching, but what she said in those few moments stunned even her fiercest critics. In a trembling but unwavering voice, Erika declared that she forgave Tyler Robinson, the young man accused of murdering her husband, Charlie Kirk. The audience gasped. Some wept. Others applauded. For many, this was the ultimate act of faith, a woman refusing to surrender to hate, even in the darkest hour of her life. But not everyone saw it that way. Hours later, Candace Owens went live, warning that Erika's forgiveness could have unintended consequences. She argued that the federal government might quietly let the case slip away, now that the widow herself had publicly renounced vengeance. And so we are left with a haunting question. Was Erika's act of forgiveness an extraordinary display of faith, or a tragic mistake that could weaken the pursuit of justice? Tonight, we unravel the memorial, the forgiveness, and Candace Owens' warning. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from, and most importantly, do you believe forgiveness strengthens or harms justice? Because this case is no longer just about Charlie Kirk's murder. It's about what happens when faith collides with the justice system, and when mercy threatens to overshadow accountability. The memorial for Charlie Kirk was unlike anything most Americans had seen in decades. State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, a venue built for football games and Super Bowls, was transformed into a place of mourning and remembrance. Tens of thousands filled the seats. More watched online. It wasn't just a gathering of friends and family. It was a national event. Former presidents, politicians, religious leaders, and everyday supporters came together under one roof. The sheer scale made it feel less like a funeral and more like a moment of history. At the center of it all was Erika Kirk. Widowed, grieving, and carrying the weight of her late husband's legacy, she walked to the podium. Silence fell across the stadium. For a few seconds, the air felt heavy, as though everyone there already knew this moment would define how the world remembered not only Charlie, but Erika as well. She began by speaking of her love for Charlie, their marriage, their shared mission, and the faith that had carried them through public battles and private struggles. Her words were raw, unpolished, but full of conviction. The audience leaned in, listening not just to a widow, but to a woman now thrust into the role of leader. Then came the turning point. Erika spoke directly about Tyler Robinson, the young man accused of taking her husband's life. And instead of anger, instead of vengeance, she offered forgiveness. "I forgive him," she said, "because that's what Charlie would want, because that's what my faith demands." The crowd erupted. Some rose to their feet, clapping through their tears. Others bowed their heads, overwhelmed. Journalists in the press section scrambled to record the words. Within minutes, the statement was already circulating online, becoming the headline of the day. In one sentence, Erika had shifted the entire narrative.
That young man, I forgive him.
The memorial was no longer just about grief. It was about mercy. It was about a widow choosing to extend compassion where the world expected condemnation. But as powerful as that moment was, it also raised questions. Questions that would ignite debate across the country. And no one voiced those questions louder or faster than Candace Owens. To understand the full weight of Erika Kirk's words, we have to look closer at what she actually said and what it meant. Forgiveness wasn't just a passing mention in her speech, it was the central theme. She spoke about the darkness of hate and the power of love. She quoted scripture, drawing from the words of Jesus on the cross, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And then she made her position clear. She would not demand vengeance. She would not call for Tyler Robinson's execution. She said she did not want that man's blood on her ledger. Instead, she would leave justice in the hands of the government, and ultimately in the hands of God. For some, this was shocking. Here was a woman whose husband had been murdered, and yet she was choosing compassion over anger. In a political climate defined by rage and division, Erika was choosing mercy, but forgiveness in this context wasn't just personal. Erika wasn't only a grieving widow, she was also stepping into her husband's shoes, as the new leader of Turning Point USA, one of the most influential conservative organizations in the country. Her words would not only shape her healing, but also the political movement her husband left behind. And that's where the tension began to build. Because forgiveness, as noble as it may be, carries consequences in the public sphere. Would it strengthen her husband's legacy, showing that their faith was more powerful than hate? Or would it weaken the case against Tyler Robinson, giving prosecutors and federal agents less pressure to pursue the harshest possible punishment? For Erika, forgiveness was a matter of the soul. For the justice system, it could become a matter of law. And that's exactly where Candace Owens drew the line. Just hours after Erika Kirk left the stage at State Farm Stadium, another voice cut through the noise, sharp, unfiltered, and ready to challenge the narrative. Candace Owens went live. Sitting in front of her camera, she didn't waste time with pleasantries. She praised Erika's strength, yes, but quickly shifted to a warning. According to Candace, Erika's forgiveness wasn't just a personal act of faith, it was a political signal, one that federal authorities would seize upon. In her words, Erika had just given the government an excuse to move slower, investigate less, and eventually allow the case to fade into the background. Candace argued that the Department of Justice doesn't need much encouragement to sideline cases that make powerful people uncomfortable. And now, with Erika herself refusing to demand the harshest punishment, Candace warned that officials could say, "If the widow has forgiven him, why should we continue to fight?" She even pointed to what she called proofs, past examples where families of victims publicly forgave, only to see the system respond with reduced charges, lighter sentences, or quietly dropped investigations. To Candace, this wasn't coincidence, it was strategy. Her tone was urgent, almost defiant. She reminded her viewers that forgiveness may heal the soul, but it does not hold governments accountable. And in her view, that accountability was already slipping away. The contrast was striking. On one side, Erika offering mercy to the man accused of murdering her husband. On the other, Candace raising alarms that this mercy would give the government cover to neglect justice. And for millions watching, the question suddenly shifted. Was Erika's forgiveness truly an act of power, or had she unknowingly played into the hands of a system eager to forget? To understand Candace Owens' warning, we have to look closely at how the justice system works. In the eyes of the law, Erika's forgiveness doesn't change the fact that Tyler Robinson is facing prosecution. Murder is not a private dispute, it's a crime against the state. Once charges are filed, the case belongs to the government, not the family of the victim. But while forgiveness doesn't erase the charges, it can influence the process. Prosecutors are not blind to public opinion. Judges are not deaf to cultural moments. And federal investigators, already stretched thin, often prioritize cases that generate pressure and outrage. This is where Candace's concern takes root. If the widow herself has publicly renounced vengeance, how much urgency will remain? Will prosecutors still push for the maximum sentence? Will federal agents still pour resources into building the strongest possible case? Or will the slow grind of bureaucracy quietly take over? History gives us examples. Families who chose forgiveness sometimes saw leniency at sentencing. Public forgiveness has been used in courtrooms as a mitigating factor, influencing juries, and even judges. In other cases, forgiveness was simply interpreted as a softening of public pressure, making it easier for officials to reduce charges without facing backlash. That is the tension at the heart of this story. Erika's decision is rooted in faith. For her, forgiveness is about saving her own soul, about refusing to carry hatred into the future. But the justice system does not operate on faith. It operates on leverage, pressure, and the perception of accountability. And when those two forces collide, personal mercy and public prosecution, the outcome is anything but certain. The country did not take long to respond. Within minutes of Erika's forgiveness making headlines, social media exploded. For many, it was an act of breathtaking grace. Supporters across the nation posted messages of admiration, calling Erika a symbol of strength and faith. Religious leaders praised her words as the clearest example of Christian forgiveness in modern political life. Sermons were rewritten. Church pulpits echoed her message the very next Sunday. But not everyone agreed. Critics argued that her forgiveness, while admirable on a spiritual level, could weaken the legal fight ahead. They pointed to Candace Owens' warnings, saying Erika had unintentionally handed the government an excuse to ease off the case. Political commentators joined in, drawing sharp lines. Some called Erika's words courageous. Others called them reckless. Was she protecting her soul, or endangering justice? The divide was clear. On one side stood those who saw her decision as a moral triumph. On the other were those who believe forgiveness has no place until accountability has been secured. And then there were those who saw something else: strategy. They noted that Erika was now stepping into leadership at Turning Point USA. To them, her message wasn't only about her husband's killer. It was about shaping her image as a leader who could embody faith, resilience, and mercy, all while keeping her late husband's movement alive. The public reaction revealed a deeper fracture. Americans weren't just debating Erika Kirk's forgiveness, they were debating the role of faith, justice, and politics in a single moment of national tragedy. Beyond the memorial, beyond the tears and applause, stood a sobering reality. Erika Kirk was no longer just a widow. Overnight, she had become a leader. As the new head of Turning Point USA, Erika was stepping into a role that her husband had built from the ground up. An organization with national influence, political weight, and millions of supporters now looked to her for guidance. And that meant every word she spoke carried consequences far beyond the walls of State Farm Stadium. Her act of forgiveness was not only personal, it was public, it was political, and it would inevitably shape how she was seen in her new role. Some saw it as a powerful beginning, a message that she would lead not with vengeance, but with compassion, a contrast to the anger that so often dominates political discourse. Others feared it signaled weakness, a softness that could be exploited both in politics and in the courtroom. But one fact was undeniable: Erika's forgiveness set her apart. It distinguished her from the chorus of voices calling for retaliation, and positioned her as a figure willing to take a higher road, even when the cost was steep. Yet the weight of legacy hung heavy. She wasn't only carrying her own reputation, she was carrying Charlie Kirk's. And for those who followed him, forgiveness wasn't just a personal decision, it became a reflection of the movement he left behind. The question lingered: was Erika forging a new path for that movement, one rooted in mercy? Or was she risking everything her husband built by loosening the demand for justice at the very moment it mattered most? As Erika's words continued to echo across the country, Candace Owens doubled down. Her live video was no fleeting outburst. It became a rallying cry for those who feared that forgiveness could unravel justice. She reminded her audience that governments often respond not to morality, but to pressure. And pressure, she argued, had just been released. With Erika refusing to demand the harshest punishment, what incentive would federal prosecutors have to pursue Tyler Robinson with full force? Candace's critics accused her of exploiting a tragedy, of twisting a widow's faith into a political weapon. But her supporters pointed to history. Time and again, high-profile cases had slipped from the headlines once public outrage cooled. Families who extended forgiveness saw courts hand down lighter sentences. Investigations that once commanded national attention gradually dissolved into silence. Was Candace exaggerating? Or was she naming a pattern few were willing to admit? Her warning cut deeper because it struck a nerve. Many Americans wanted to believe Erika's forgiveness was a shield of faith, but others feared it could become a shield for the system, a convenient reason for officials to turn their attention elsewhere. In this clash of perspectives, the stakes became clear. One widow's act of mercy might heal her heart, but could it also allow the machinery of justice to grind to a halt? That was the dilemma now hanging over the case. A tension between faith and accountability, mercy and the law. And with each passing day, the question grew louder: which one would prevail? Erika Kirk's forgiveness was an act that stopped the nation in its tracks. In a single moment, she redefined what it meant to respond to tragedy, not with vengeance but with mercy. For many, it was the purest reflection of faith. For others, it was a dangerous precedent. Candace Owens' response only sharpened the divide. To her, forgiveness wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a larger fight. She warned that mercy could become a loophole, that the justice system might seize this moment to ease off, leaving the case unresolved or forgotten. And so we are left with two truths that seem to pull in opposite directions. Forgiveness can heal, but it can also complicate. Justice demands accountability, but it often bends under the weight of politics and perception. The legacy of this moment will not be measured only in what Erika said at the memorial. It will be measured in what happens next. Will Tyler Robinson face the full force of the law? Or will Erika's mercy shift the path of prosecution? Will forgiveness strengthen her husband's legacy, or weaken the pursuit of justice he deserved? These are questions no one can answer yet. What we know is this: Erika Kirk chose to rise above hate, even when she had every reason not to. And Candace Owens chose to sound the alarm, insisting that mercy cannot replace accountability. Which side is right? Faith or caution? Forgiveness or justice? That is for the future to decide. But tonight we are left with a haunting reminder. Sometimes the greatest acts of love carry the heaviest consequences. Now we turn the question to you. Do you believe Erika's forgiveness will help heal this nation? Or do you fear, as Candace Owens does, that it could allow justice to slip away? Let us know in the comments, and tell us where you're watching from, because this story is not over, and the choices made in the days ahead will determine whether Erika's mercy becomes a triumph of faith, or a tragedy of justice delayed.